What's up, guys? Saf here on SuperSaf Speaks, and welcome to episode number 58 of the podcast with myself, your host, SuperSaf, and my co-host,
Sunday from Border Work.
who is very jet lagged right now and has just come back from a late flight, so I appreciate him jumping on. Hopefully, he's not going to fall asleep during the podcast because we've got some exciting things to talk about. We've got some early leaks for the Galaxy Z Fold 8, potentially another Galaxy Z Fold 8, which will be called the 8 Fold Wide. I'm sure Samsung will come up with a better name for it. Oppo Find N6, which is currently, I would say, like the king of the foldables right now. And we've also had some time with the Samsung Galaxy A37 and A57, so we'll share some of our thoughts about that as well. So let's kick off with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 8. So we've got some CAD renders that have come from Android headlines. It's usually Android headlines, right, that come up with the early leaks for everything. And it's looking very interesting. There's lots of things that are similar. So it does seem like a modest refresh with same display sizes and overall design, so the same 8-inch inner display and the same 6.5-inch outer display. However, we have some leak specs from the Galaxy as well on Twitter.
Galaxy Note 10.
And he's saying that we're going to get a dual layer UTG ultra thin glass to significantly reduce the visible fold line compared to previous models, right? So that should make it more durable with less of a crease, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. The other thing that we're seeing is the leaked dimensions, and the thickness is also going to be slightly more compared to the Fold 7. However, when we compare it to the Fold 7, although it's going to be a little bit thicker, according to these early leaks, there are two reasons why it's going to be a little bit thicker. Number one is to accommodate the S Pen. Number two, to house a larger battery. Now, if that's the case, then those are the two things we were kind of like missing on the Fold 7, right? So this way, if it's slightly thicker, they'll be able to fit in the digitizer. So that will mean that we'll have S Pen support back again on the Fold 8, which we didn't have on the Fold 7, but we did have on the Fold 6. And we will get, for the first time, for a first change for the battery capacity since the Z Fold 3, right? So 4,400 milliamps is now going to be 5,000 milliamps. Now, if you ask me, I'm happy. Like, if you're going to increase the device thickness slightly and you're going to give me S Pen support as well as a big battery, that's a thumbs up from me. What do you think?
Okay, let me start with the battery first, right? I am happy with 5,000 if it's going to be 5,000, but Samsung, let's just go past 5,000. Let's push it 5,500. Nothing too crazy, but you know what? I am still happy with that. When it comes to the digitizer, because we've seen with Oppo, for instance, you can use a pen both external and internal display. So Samsung has to step up to that because that is something that they pioneered. And the Galaxy Note was the first pen device for smartphones. There were other pen devices back in the day with Windows Phone Mobile, or whatever it was called. Now, the other thing too that is quite interesting is the crease, the dual layer screen tech that you mentioned.
Now, ultra thin glass, yeah.
Ultra thin glass. Now, I'm wondering, is this in addition to what we already have seen from Samsung Display? Because Samsung Display, at least behind the scenes, they've had creaseless displays for about 2 years. This year at CES, they came out and showed a creaseless foldable display. And, we know they're supplying Samsung because it's Samsung Display. And we know that Apple is getting that. At least the rumors are pointing at Apple is getting that also from Samsung Display. So is this an extra layer to that as well? Or is it just part of the same technology? We don't know. But having creaseless displays, having an S Pen support, having a bigger battery, this might, pull me back quickly again to the Fold, because I used the Fold the whole of last year. Yeah. And I really miss it now that I'm on the Ultra, and I would like to go back. So I'd like to go back with all these features. So I'm a happy man. But the question is, since there are two foldables, once we get to the wide, which would you pick? That's my question to you. Which do you think you would go for once we start talking about the wide?
Yeah, let's cover those things first before we go into the choice, all right? I mean, firstly, if the crease is going to be reduced, which I would assume it's going to be at least reduced. Will it be the same as Oppo? We don't know yet. They're saying it's going to be a laser drilled display metal support plate, according to the rumors, which should reduce that crease. And then we've also got some improvements for potentially for the charging. So 45 watts of charging up from 25 watts. So that's one other thing with the Fold devices. They've had the same charging speed, so this should be an increase. And for the cameras, the current rumors are that they're going to be going to a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera up from the 12 megapixel. However, the 10 megapixel 3x telephoto is going to be staying the same. All right. So that is the current rumor sort of roundup. Pricing is rumored to stay the same, around $2,000 for the starting price. And Unpacked is going to be in summer. Now, we're not sure exactly when that's going to be as yet, but around July time is what we had the Fold 7. So maybe we'll also get that in for the Fold 8. So that's currently the roundup of the Fold 8. Now, although it's very similar, obviously it was a big change for Samsung when they went from the Fold 6 to the Fold 7. So I was expecting them to kind of keep that DNA with some improvements here or there. And I think this lines up with the expectations. Now, the new one, the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 8 Wide. Now this, it literally seems like it's Samsung's iPhone Fold competitor. So we've seen the rumors for the iPhone Fold. And the reason I say this is because according to Android headlines, we're going to have a wider foldable that's going to be like the Google Pixel Fold or say the Oppo Find N2, which are more like book-style foldables. Codename for this is supposedly H8, and it's going to be announced alongside the Z Fold 8. Now, specs-wise, we are going to be looking at similar specs to the Z Fold 8. So, Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy, likely a 5,000 milliamp hour capacity for the battery and 45 watts charging. However, this will now have a 5.4-inch cover display and a 7.6-inch inner display. Dimension-wise, it's obviously going to be wider, both when it's closed and it's open, but it's not going to be as tall as the Fold 7. The other thing that we're seeing on these leaked renders is that we're going to have a dual camera setup, not a triple camera setup. So this is going to be similar to the S25 Edge, where you've got an ultra-wide as well as a primary. And pricing apparently is going to be very similar to the Z Fold 8, around $2,000. And the reason for this, once again, is because Apple is expected to be pricing the iPhone Fold around the same time. So what this looks like to me is that obviously we've all seen the iPhone Fold rumors, which we've covered in previous episodes. And Samsung were like, okay, we've got our regular foldable, but we need something that's going to go head to head with the iPhone Fold, right? More of a book style foldable, should we say, slightly smaller with a wider screen and a wider front screen as well. And this seems to be Samsung's answer to the iPhone Fold.
Now you listed the specs, right? The two things that jump at me is the dual camera and not the triple camera setup.
Yep.
That's the first thing. The second thing is also, this is rumors, so there's no mention of the S Pen support, right? We don't know if there is or isn't. And there isn't talk about crease, but I think the crease will be the same just because it's supposed to go against the iPhone Fold. So I think that part is fine. But to me, it's the S Pen support and the camera. Like, even if it didn't have the S Pen support, but that triple camera system, to me, is a little bit more important. And I feel like this is where Samsung needs to not match Apple, but actually separate itself from Apple. They've been in this game for the longest time. And yeah, I'm actually glad they want to bring out a book style foldable and just tell people, look, if you want a standard phone style foldable or book style, there's no compromise. They're both the same. It's just your choice. Because once you give us that one lens is missing, just one lens. This is Android ecosystem. This is not Apple, where Apple users are very different. They look at it differently. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of, iPhone, like pro users who are like, I kind of like the iPhone Air. I'm like, really? You use more cameras than that? What are you talking about? But they just catch the feelings, right?
Yeah.
But Android ecosystem, we don't do that. Give us everything and just give us the choice of, do you want it tall or do you want it wide? That is my only distinction here. And if it stays this way, to answer my own question, I think I'll go with the regular fold.
Okay. So here's the thing. Obviously, these are early leaks, so things may change because I agree with you. If you're offering a foldable that matches the iPhone Fold, but you're offering additional things like an additional camera, maybe S Pen support, then that really makes it stand out a little bit more, and it makes it an easier choice for somebody who's looking for those things. Now, this is my guess right now, based on what we're seeing with the renders. If Samsung is going for this, where they're going for a dual camera, maybe they're going to lower the price, right? So maybe their tactics is going to be that, hey, look, you can get something that does everything that the iPhone Fold does, but you're going to get it for a lower price, maybe $300 less or $250 less. So instead of the $2,000 price mark, it's going to be around $1,750, maybe. I don't know. That's just a guess, maybe, because that would make it a little bit more acceptable to have one less camera for the same price. Because otherwise, you'd just be like, why not just go for the Fold 8? Why go for this wide option, right? Unless you wanted something specifically. But Samsung does tend to do this, right? We've seen the iPhone Air. As soon as we had rumors for the iPhone Air, the S25 Edge came out before that, right? So it's like slided before that, had the additional camera, etc., tried to go. It wasn't as thin, but this is what they try to do, right? They try to like kind of, all right, let's move in before that. And if this is the case, if it's around July, August time, then it would come in directly before the iPhone, and then you've got a direct competitor. But then I agree with you. I'm trying to think of what gives it the edge. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of the Edge, to me, the Edge provided more than the Air. Edge, other than the thinness, which honestly they are very close. It's not like it was a full millimeter away. It was like sub
Point
sub millimeters,
some X millimeter,
point whatever, right? So they were basically the same thickness, but Samsung offered more cameras, bigger battery, and also dual speakers, right? So there was more with the Edge than the Air. And I would expect the same thing here is that, give us more, because if that's going to have two cameras, you already have a 3-camera module. It's the same module, right? On the device.
Yeah.
Supply it. Just do that. But again, it's rumors, so we don't know
exactly
if that's the case or not. Yeah.
One thing that's not a rumor is what we've both got, and that is, I would say, the foldable to beat so far this year in 2026. It is the Oppo Find N6. Now, this has what Oppo call the world's first zero fill crease, because when you put your finger across it, it's got the least feeling crease from any other foldable out there. Can you still feel it? Yes. Can you still see that crease? Yes. Is it as prominent as other foldables? No, this is the least creased foldable out there. And the way Oppo have also achieved this is pretty impressive, right? They've got the 2nd generation titanium flexion hinge, which they're calling, and it's got the industry's first 3D liquid printing. So what they've done is, as far as I understand, is the gaps within the hinge, they've laser scanned these and liquid 3D printed. So all of those gaps of that hinge are filled in to push out that crease as much as possible. They've also got this auto smoothing flex glass, which is 50% thicker. And I'm going to be honest with you, creases have not really bothered me on foldables since the Fold 1, because when you're looking at the device head on, you don't really see it anyway, right? You don't really see. It's only when somebody's looking at it from the side. For some people, it actually bothers them a lot. If you are one of those people, the Find N6 might be the device for you. And it's not only that, right? It's a full-fledged device. You've got IP56, IP58, and IP59 water and dust resistance. So it's almost fully dust-proof. Not completely dust-tight like the Honor Magic V6, but it is completely watertight, so it can also withstand high-pressure jets. Got 6.62-inch cover display and 8.12-inch folding display. Both of them are 1 to 120 Hz. Very compact and thin, so when it's closed, it's around 8.93 millimeters, 225 grams, which makes it roughly about the same size as a standard bar-shaped phone. And also the cameras. We've not got many compromises with the cameras. I've actually been testing this out as well. You've got, firstly, I would say one of the smallest camera modules on any foldable smartphone. So it doesn't really protrude out. There's not much of a camera bump. You've got 200 megapixel primary camera, a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 50 megapixel periscope zoom camera, And you've got two 20 megapixel selfie cameras, one on the cover and one on the inner side. 6,000 milliamp hour silicon carbon battery. So this is larger than what we've got on the Fold 7 and potentially what we're going to have on the Fold 8. 80 watts of wide charging, 50 watts of wireless charging, and we have Oppo's AI pen, which works not only on the cover display but also on the folding display, and it also has Bluetooth. So you're going to be able to use it as a remote trigger and do things like that, which you can no longer do even on the Samsung Galaxy S device, right? So Oppo have kind of like really tried to do this. One thing I'm not sure about, right? One thing that I'm not sure about is does it have a digitizer like Samsung devices do, right? So it has 1096 levels of pressure sensitivity, but it's not got a proper digitizer like Samsung does. So it might not give you the exact feeling that you would do with Samsung style of S Pens. And this is the reason why it also works on the cover display. Price around the same price, around $2,000. I mean, it's a very impressive foldable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. One of the things that I really like about it is the cameras. The cameras are good. Um, especially on the foldable plane. Now I have to kind of gauge it away from regular phones to foldables. The cameras are a little less in general.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed because I'm doing a comparison with the Z Fold and the Automagic V6. So whenever you watch this video, it will be live then.
Yeah.
Um, 6X on there is really good, and that's something the Z Fold just doesn't have. It's all digital at that point.
Yeah.
So the camera is solid. I think with the crease, you're looking at something that, yes, like you, I'm not usually bothered with the crease, but when I saw the difference, I was like, ah, I guess I've been living in the past, for a long time, but it's nice to see that. I think Oppo really has done a good job in making this stand out as a solid device. Battery at 6,000 milliamps, which is better than a Galaxy flagship. Forget the foldable, like
Yeah.
those kind of things. They've set certain things that said, hey, look, we're going to try and give you the best of what we can do within the foldable space. I like that there. I think, right now Samsung is in a very interesting position because on the main tier line of devices, they again stiff competition there. On the foldable side of devices, there's stiff competition, with matching devices in terms of thickness or thinness, if you will, battery life, camera, crease, I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's good to see competition. So I really like the way this device has hit the nail on the head,
Hmm.
for a lot of people. And yes, it's not gonna be available in the US markets for us here in the US. But it's something that at least generally there's more competition on the market for people to check out that go, okay, this is definitely worth picking up.
I think so. This is the thing. I mean, there's always been lots of competition, but I think Oppo this year have been like, they've very confidently said that their crease is going to be less than anything released this year or maybe even next. They're like very confident about this zero fuel crease, and it is very impressive. And as a device, an overall device,
Mhm.
a very impressive device, and it really should give a push to others to improve some of these things. And I think Oppo, like with they're really just trying to make a statement here, right? Okay, this is our foldable, and it is the best foldable you can buy. Honor have also done a good job with their V6, but like with this zero field crease, and you were talking about the camera. I was actually doing some zoom tests on this. It does have the AI zoom, which works offline,
Mhm.
and you can go up to 120 times, and then obviously it's gonna fill in the details for you with AI. But it
Yeah.
does a good job. You know what I mean? It's something that the Fold
Mhm.
7, for example, can't do. It can't go all the way to 120 times, right? So this is where, like, and especially considering this camera bump, like, look how small that camera bump is, right? It's not going to rock on the table. It doesn't protrude out so much. But regardless, this is where I think Oppo are trying to say, hey, look, you don't have to compromise when it comes to a foldable. You still get
Yep.
pretty much everything that you do when you have a regular bar-shaped phone, but this one just folds out with a larger screen. Yeah, foldable competitions this year is getting pretty high. You know what's interesting, actually, on a side
Yeah.
point, this is the first year I've seen a lot of people with foldables who I wouldn't expect to have a foldable, and I think that's thanks to the Fold 7. So I'm going
Yeah.
around and I'm like meeting friends, and they're like, "Yeah, I bought the Fold. I bought the Fold 7," and so many people were very impressed with the Fold 7 because it kind of was the first one where there wasn't really major compromises. It's like, look, you still got a 200 megapixel primary camera. You still have, a very usable front display. You have thinness, so it's not hugely thick. It doesn't feel like a brick in your pocket or anything like that. All of these things. And I think this is where the change is coming, right? So I think more and more
Yeah.
people, especially when we get the iPhone Fold, I think 2026 is going to be the year of foldables because you're going to have more people on foldables than ever before.
Oh yeah, I think once the iPhone Fold comes in, I mean, this is a side comment. I think this is Apple's year
Mm.
simply because they will launch two devices clearly that meets consumers either needs and wants. So
Yeah.
the first one is the MacBook Neo. That's more of a need because the price point approaches a need.
Yeah.
And so far it's been selling well. And then the second one is the iPhone Fold, which is a want because iPhone users who don't want to switch over have been like, I kind of like that foldable. I'm really liking what I see.
Yeah.
Now Apple's like, you can have it, right? So I think this is going to be, it's going to get right. It's going to be a foldable year, and I think 2027 is going to be the year where we see the Chinese manufacturers step up their game again on foldables, where they might bring say someone like Oppo might bring the Find X9 camera system into the foldables, maybe not the Ultra, but just the 9 Pro system into the foldables. And then they're like, hey, look, now there's no compromise. We give you no crease, better battery life than everybody. And now you've got a camera. And then it's going to get slightly thicker again because just housing all that fun stuff. But at that point, you're like, I now have a tablet. The conversation we've had for years on the fold space. I have a tablet, I have a phone, and I have a camera system that I like. That's
All in
where it
one.
becomes. I have my whole unit. I don't need to carry anything else, or at least maybe my laptop, just because I need something of a bigger screen to do work, and that's about it.
It's an interesting time for sure. Now, final thing we're going to be talking about is the Samsung Galaxy A37 and A57, which have just been announced recently, and myself and Enabang have had a chance to test. Interesting devices. So we've got the same polycarbonate frame for the A37 and aluminium frame for the A57. 4 colors, both of them come in. All of them are called awesome. I'm not going to go into the names of every single one of those colors. A few improvements compared to last year. So we've got IP68 from IP67. And although the A37 remains the same in terms of the size and pretty much when it comes to the weight as well, the A57 is now the thinnest A series ever. So it's around 0.5 millimeters thinner compared to the A56. And it's also around 19 grams lighter. And I think this is something that you really can feel. And I think this is where Samsung's kind of like trying to push that thinness across all of their devices. The A37 has pretty much the same display, but the A57 now has a 6.7-inch Full HD Plus display, Super AMOLED Plus as well, which is why it allows it to be a thinner display, and it also consumes less power. Smaller bezels on the A57. However, there is still that chin, man.
Yeah. No, it's never going away.
This is the thing. Like, some people are going to be like, dude, just be quiet. It doesn't really matter. But my point has always been, there are other devices, especially the Nothing phones, right? So if you look at the Nothing 4A or the 4A Pro, they've got uniform bezels and they look better from the front. That's my point. I don't know why Samsung, considering Samsung is the pioneer of AMOLED displays, why are you not doing that for the A series? But anyway, cameras, we've got 12 megapixel selfie camera on both devices. You've got 8 megapixel ultra wide on the A37. On the A57, you've got 12 megapixels. You've got 50 megapixel primary cameras on both devices with a 1.0 pixel size, which is a decent size pixel, and the shot-to-shot speed has also increased on both devices. And then we've got a 5 megapixel macro camera. Now, this is one thing that always frustrates me. It's like, yes, I know you want to have the symmetry there. You want that triple ring design that you've got with other devices, but it's such a useless macro camera, right? If you look at other devices, again, in this price range, I'm using Nothing as an example, but there are others. OnePlus have a few examples as well on their side. You're going to get better cameras. You're going to get a more versatile camera, should we say. This is another thing. What do you
Yeah.
think of 5 megapixel macro cameras?
Trash. Let's just call it what it is.
Trash. Let's just call it what it is.
Trash. Let's just call it what it is. Trash. To me, one of the interesting things with the A57 is Samsung has devalued the device over the years. Because the price point is what, $499,
Okay,
right?
so pounds is £529 for the A57. The A37 starts at
Yeah.
£399, but you have to remember that the A36 started at $399 as well, but it had double the storage, 256 gigabytes versus 128. The A57 starts £30 more.
Sorry, A57 is $599 in the US. Sorry, I made a mistake on that price. The reason I talked about the devaluation is, number one, the processor. The processor here is an Exynos 1680, right? I wish it was an Exynos 2500 from last year
Yeah.
instead of this, right? Or even give us the Exynos, the new one, 2600, because no, it's not. It's going in no other place other than Samsung devices. You might as well put it in somewhere. But if you give me last year's Exynos, the 2500, I would have been happy.
Yeah.
Now, when I stack it across the board within this price range now, what are the devices here? A57, Nothing 4A Pro, Pixel 10A, and the iPhone 17e. Stack all of them together, right? What are you picking? For me, it's a Nothing 4A Pro. The bigger battery, it looks like much better cameras, Snapdragon 7 whatever series processor, which is a better processor. And then I would go with probably the A17e as my second in there. And then even the Tensor with the Pixel might be my third
So this
before I
is
get to
moving it down
Samsung.
quite significantly. Now, okay, one
Yes.
advantage that Samsung does have is the software updates. They're offering 6 years of OS updates and 6 years of security updates, 7 years for business-to-business customers, which is all well and good, but you have a limited set of Galaxy AI features, right? So you've not got
Yeah.
the full-fledged Galaxy AI features. Battery, 5,000 milliamps, which is decent, right? Okay, with 45 watts of charging, no wireless charging though. Now, I've got a slightly different point to you. I totally agree with your points, by the way. There is a lot more competition in this market. But my point is that the S25 FE from last year, okay,
Okay. Didn't
right?
see.
Exynos 2400. You have a usable 8 megapixel telephoto camera, no macro camera. You have wireless charging. You have the full suite of Galaxy AI features. Not like a selection of a few. You have a full suite of Galaxy AI features. Now, I checked the price of the S25 FE. This is before Samsung announced the A57. And guess how much it was on Amazon? Directly from Amazon, the official S25 FE, £500. Okay? As soon as
Okay.
Samsung announced it, the price jumped up to £650. So that tells me that Samsung were aware of this, very, very much aware of this, right? That look, if we sell the S25 FE for £500, and then we're going to be charging £530 for the A57, which does not match what the S25 FE has, then who's going to buy the A57?
Okay, here's a question I want to pose, because I think Samsung is running into a problem that BMW ran into. There's too many SKUs. There's too many SKUs. So, the A series has always been their largest volume selling series, right? And I get it. Even the A57 for a while, there was a period in time where it was one of their best selling. But then again, that was also running like the 7 series Snapdragon, whatever it was called at the time.
Yeah.
So I can understand you keeping that. And I'm going, Samsung, if that's the case, don't release an FE, right? Like, there's no need for an FE if you're going to make the A sort of your FE. Or if you want to do the opposite way around, keep the A27, 37, like that's super budget phone. Forget the A57 and make the FE what it should be, that hybrid in between. Because as a customer, if you're looking at the top tier, you're going ultra plus regular. Plus is just there for fun. We know that. So it's ultra and regular at that point. And then you're going, okay, I need something in between that attracts people who just don't have enough to go up there, but are very comfortable in that like $500 to $600 price range. you have to pick a device. You can't pick and choose because once again, it's Android ecosystem, when customers start looking at the details of the devices, you just said it right there. I was mentioning competitors. You went, just look last year. Heck, what is the price of last year's regular S25? S25 from last year.
And that's something we're gonna have to look at. So the
How far off is
S25,
that?
S25 from last year, right now, I'm just going onto Amazon. You can get it for about £544. This is not from directly from Amazon, so it's like a third party seller. But again, I'm sure you'll be able to find it for a decent value. The other thing I want to mention right now is while we were talking, I had a look on Amazon again, and although the £500 offer has gone for the S25 FE, you can get a voucher which will bring the price down to around £560, right? Again, even for £560, I would still say go for the S25 FE instead of the A57. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you've got a better device, which is going to be way faster. You're going to have a better camera. All of these things, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I think the views on the videos and the coverage, like, there hasn't been as much excitement on the A series this year as it was last year. I think last year we had better deals. I still mentioned the same thing in comparison to the S24 FE, but still you had a bit more of a compelling package there. But I think this time it's pretty tricky, man. It's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking at the S25 pricing here in the US, it's still around 700 from from Samsung on Amazon. But you can find from third parties a little lower, around about 680. Renewed, which is basically used and just basically refurbished properly, is 400. I
So
would
there you
take
go.
that at sorry,
Yeah.
$430. I would take that at 430 because I
Mhm.
know I have a device that is tied to the 7-year updates, has, bet drastically better performance
Yep.
overall.
So yeah, Samsung, I think definitely when it comes to the A series, you need to be going back to the drawing board because this pricing, yes, I understand the storage crisis and everything, but when you've got your own devices, forget the competitors, when you've got your own previous year devices that are way better, that are priced similarly, it's a no-brainer. I think one area where it will do well and has always traditionally done well is when it comes to B2B, because when you're looking at B2B, you're going to get discounted prices. You're going to be buying in bulk. You want to buy them brand new from Samsung. So you have all of the support, you have the security. I think that's where they're going to be popular. But for regular consumers, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, before we wrap up, something that we can talk about is SuperSaf Speaks on TikTok. Right. So, as you guys may or may not know, we have an account on TikTok as well as on Instagram where we post a lot of the reels. So, we're not only on YouTube. And to be fair, the podcast reels were starting to really pick up and do well. But suddenly, the TikTok account of SuperSaf Speaks has now got this warning which says account not recommended. When you click on that, it says account not recommended. We found that your account is posing as another person or organization in a confusing way. As a result, your account will not be recommended to others. You can edit your profile or submit an appeal if you believe this was a mistake. So basically, TikTok thinks I'm impersonating myself. I appeal this. The appeal was rejected. Okay. And then when I've been talking to TikTok support, they're like, yeah, your account's fine. You can go into it and it shows fine. And I'm like, no, I'm still getting this message. My views have dropped to 10% of what they were before. What are you doing? And it's nothing. So I don't know. Like, from what I'm seeing right now, it looks like we're just gonna have to give up on the SuperSaf Speaks TikTok page. So frustrating.
That's always the problem with platforms. Um, is I will give you more of the details. I spoke to a rep from Meta. This was just about Facebook. We had a scheduled call, but the reason I mention this is that every other platform other than YouTube has and is still currently failing creators. I'll repeat that again. Every platform other than YouTube had his messy days, but even in its the wild west of YouTube, it was still organized enough that you knew the signs of, okay, if this happened, this is what this means. And then, it was hard to get somebody sure, but you understood the steps. But also, again, it was easy to get awareness because, I would reach out, I had the issue, I would reach out to Saf. Saf will tweet about it. Maybe Danny will tweet about it. And everybody's like, yeah, whoa, 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 what's going on? And YouTube's like, oh, whoa, my bad, my bad. Let's check it out. We can make I could make millions of videos on TikTok now. Saf could do it on his main channel, and they will tell both of us, "It's fine."
I think you know what this this reminds me of Parker Burton, because
Yeah.
he's got like literally millions of followers on TikTok and he's still not verified. Right? Is that still the case? Let's
Yeah,
check this
yeah,
out. Right?
I don't think he is.
Let's see.
I don't
Okay,
think he
Parker.
is.
Let's see if you are. Um. Okay, Parker Burton. Nope. 3.4 million followers and he's still not verified, bro. Come on, TikTok. What are you playing at? I don't know what we're gonna do about that. If somebody watching has a contact at TikTok, then please do reach out and try to solve this, because I was actually getting excited about the podcast on TikTok and Instagram because it started picking up and doing really well. And then suddenly, nope, your accounts are recommended because you impersonate yourself. Crazy, crazy times.
You impersonator, how dare
Yeah.
you?
That's the side Saf that you see in the videos. That's his account, by the way. He just looks a lot like me.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's all we have time for. If you enjoyed the episode, please do follow on YouTube, Instagram, and also TikTok at SuperSaf Speaks. Even though the account is not recommended, maybe once you push it up over 10,000 followers, something will change. And also on your favorite podcasting platforms, you can follow us on there as well. This has been your
Yeah.
host, SuperSaf, with my co-host,
Thunder E from Border Work.
and we'll see you next time.